a forward defensive position in eastern Ukraine, 5 kilometers south of Bakhmut. 22:15 hours yesterday night. Temperature +3 Celsius with overcast sky, blocking moonlight and creating absolute darkness. Light drizzle beginning to fall, reducing visibility to 5 meters without night vision equipment. Complete darkness of a type rarely experienced. Soldiers could not see their own hands at arm's length. Russian infantry company occupying trench line and fortified positions, defending critical sector against expected Ukrainian offensive operations. 143 combat soldiers organized into 3 rifle platoons, plus command element and support section. Defensive position consisted of trench network extending 800 meters along low ridgeline with 11 machine gun positions, 7 observation posts, and 14 dugouts for personnel shelter. Soldiers equipped with standard Russian infantry weapons, AK-74M rifles, PKM machine guns, RPG-7 anti-tank weapons. Night vision situation was critically inadequate. Only 57 soldiers had 1 PN-58 monocular devices providing limited capability in darkness. This represented merely 40% of total force strength. Remainder relied on ambient light, position familiarity, and in some cases, civilian hunting optics purchased with personal funds. Ukrainian assault force consisted of mechanized infantry company with 97 soldiers supported by 4 BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicles with detailed fire support coordination. Critical technological advantage was comprehensive night vision capability. Every single Ukrainian squad possessed modern thermal weapon sights, showing heat signatures through absolute darkness. Thermal optics detected human bodies at 37 degrees Celsius as bright white shapes against cool 3-degree background, regardless of darkness, fog, or concealment. This 40-degree temperature differential created stark contrast easily detectable at ranges exceeding 600 meters. The technological gap created fundamentally asymmetric engagement where Ukrainian forces could observe Russian positions with near-daylight clarity while Russian defenders were effectively blind. 6 hours and 23 minutes after Ukrainian assault commenced, Russian position would be completely overrun. 79 Russian soldiers would be dead, killed by precise fire they never saw coming. 53 would be wounded, many severely, with injuries from 30mm autocannon fire and thermally guided rifle shots. 11 would be missing, lost in darkness during chaotic withdrawal. Ukrainian forces would suffer 9 killed and 28 wounded. Casualties primarily from random defensive fire and several accurate shots from Russian soldiers possessing night vision devices. The casualty ratio of nearly 9-to-1 would demonstrate how technology dominance in night vision creates absolutely decisive advantage in ground combat. This happened yesterday night during new moon period, providing maximum natural darkness. No stars visible through overcast cloud cover. Drizzle creating additional atmospheric scatter. Survivors describe overwhelming terror of fighting invisible enemy while being themselves clearly visible to opponent equipped with thermal sensors. Russian soldiers reported feeling exposed, helpless, knowing every movement was observed while they could see nothing. Psychological impact exceeded physical casualties. Tactical implications of night vision capability gap continue affecting Russian operations planning, with many units refusing night defensive operations without adequate thermal equipment. This is what occurred during those 6 hours and 23 minutes when darkness became weapon, when technology transformed night into absolute Ukrainian advantage. Night combat requires fundamental ability to see and engage targets in darkness when natural human vision becomes inadequate. Human eyes evolved for daylight. Photoreceptor cells require sufficient photons to generate neural signals. In absolute darkness, human vision essentially ceases. Eyes may partially adapt over 30 to 40 minutes, but never achieve capability for combat operations. Military forces employ night vision devices, technologies amplifying available light through image intensification or detecting thermal radiation invisible to human eyes. Quality and comprehensive availability of night vision equipment creates enormous tactical advantage. The gap between forces with thermal optics and forces with limited night vision exceeds even the gap between forces with rifles and forces with bows. Russian night vision equipment represented mixed quality and severely limited availability. Best equipment was 1P-N58 monocular, first-generation image intensification, providing grainy green image. Device amplified available ambient light through photocathode and phosphor screen. Effective range perhaps 200 meters in good conditions, degrading to 75 meters in poor conditions, becoming essentially useless in absolute darkness. Devices required measurable ambient light. Technology amplified existing photons but could not create vision where no photons existed. That night's complete darkness rendered first-generation devices nearly worthless. Soldiers reported seeing nothing but grainy green static. Only 57 soldiers out of 143 possessed any night vision device. This 40% coverage represented better allocation than many Russian units, but meant 60% fought effectively blind. Distribution was prioritized. Machine gunners received devices first, then team leaders and designated marksmen. Regular riflemen mostly had no night vision capability. Those without devices fought using techniques from earlier warfare eras. Listening for sounds, watching for muzzle flashes, firing at suspected positions without target identification. Ukrainian forces possessed dramatically superior equipment distributed across entire force. Thermal weapon sights mounted on rifles detected infrared radiation in 8 to 14 micron wavelength band emitted by objects above absolute zero. Human body at 37 degrees emits substantial infrared compared to 3-degree environment. Thermal sensors detected this differential, processed signal through microbolometer detector array, displayed image showing warm objects as bright shapes against cooler background. Technology worked perfectly in complete darkness. No ambient light required. Technology worked through light fog, smoke, and concealment, blocking visible light. Technology provided clear target identification at 600+ meters. Every Ukrainian squad possessed multiple thermal sights. Squad leaders carried handheld thermal monoculars for situational awareness. Designated marksmen had rifle-mounted thermal scopes with magnification. Machine gunners possessed thermal sights, enabling accurate suppressive fire. BMP-2 commanders operated advanced thermal systems with longer range. Comprehensive coverage meant Ukrainian force fought with complete vision, while Russian force fought substantially blind. Tactical disparity was enormous. Ukrainian soldiers could observe Russian positions in detail, identify individual soldiers by heat signatures, distinguish personnel from equipment, track movements, engage with precision. Russian soldiers could not see attackers, could not identify targets, could only fire at sounds or muzzle flashes, possessed essentially no target acquisition capability. Battle became one-sided engagement where one force fought blind against opponent with clear vision. Ukrainian assault preparation commenced hours before attack with detailed reconnaissance. At 1800 hours, while some twilight remained, Ukrainian reconnaissance teams occupied concealed observation positions 400 to 600 meters from Russian defensive line. 6 soldiers equipped with thermal binoculars and laser rangefinders spent 4 hours conducting surveillance. Through thermal optics, Russian defensive preparations were clearly visible. Reconnaissance teams methodically identified exact locations of critical positions. Machine gun emplacements appeared as distinct heat signatures, both from weapons recently test-fired and from gunners whose body heat concentrated in specific positions. Observation posts revealed themselves through soldiers moving in and out. Command dugout was identified by concentrated activity. Field fortifications were mapped using thermal differential signatures. Recently excavated earth showed different thermal properties. Positions where soldiers spent extended time showed heat retention. By 2200 hours, Ukrainian reconnaissance had created detailed thermal map accurate to within 5 meters. Intelligence on Russian night vision capabilities was assessed through observation. Approximately 40% of observed soldiers demonstrated night vision device usage through characteristic head movements. Remaining 60% showed no evidence of capability. This confirmed Ukrainian assessment of exploitable vulnerability. Information was transmitted to assault force commander, enabling precise planning. Ukrainian company commander studied thermal reconnaissance data on tablet computer displaying real-time updates. Digital map showed Russian positions with specific annotations. MG1 through MG11 designating machine guns, OP1 through OP7 marking observation posts, CP designating command post. Commander developed detailed fire plan allocating targets to each element. BMP-2 vehicles would engage with 30mm autocannon against hardened positions and machine guns. Thermal targeting would enable precise fire. 4 BMPs were assigned 11 machine gun positions, each responsible for destroying 2 or 3 designated targets. Infantry squads received specific sector assignments. Each squad understood exact defender positions in their sector through pre-assault thermal intelligence. At 22:43 hours precisely, assault commenced with coordinated suppressive fire against identified machine gun positions. 4 BMP-2 vehicles, positioned 300 to 400 meters from Russian line in defilade positions, engaged simultaneously with 30mm autocannon. Thermal targeting allowed unprecedented precision for vehicle-mounted weapons. BMP-1 gunner identified MG1 position through thermal sight showing bright heat signatures of 2 Russian machine gunners. Crosshairs settled on position. Gunner fired 3-round burst. High explosive rounds impacted precisely. First struck sandbag parapet, second penetrated position killing both gunners instantly. Third detonated inside destroying PKM machine gun. Engagement duration 2.3 seconds from identification to destruction. MG1 eliminated before gunners knew they were under attack. Similar engagements occurred simultaneously. BMP-2 destroyed MG3 with 4-round burst. BMP-3 engaged MG5 and MG6 in sequence, destroying both within 8 seconds. BMP-4 engaged MG8, initially missing when gunner moved unexpectedly, then destroying position with second burst. Within 60 seconds, 7 of 11 Russian machine gun positions were destroyed or suppressed. 4 survived, MG2 escaped due to BMP malfunction, MG4 and MG9 were in defilade positions, MG11 was misidentified. Russian defenders experienced sudden catastrophic violence from darkness. Machine gunners in destroyed positions had mere seconds, hearing cannon fire, not understanding source, then experiencing explosive impact and obliteration. Wounded suffered terribly, bodies shredded by 30mm fragments. Private Dmitry Sokolov, 19-year-old gunner in MG4, protected by terrain, heard explosions along trench line. Through his 1PN58 monocular, he saw nothing. No muzzle flashes, no tracers, nothing but grainy green static. His hands trembled as he listened to screams from wounded soldiers echoing through darkness. Russian company commander in command dugout received chaotic radio reports. Machine guns under fire. Cannot see enemy. Heavy casualties. Commander attempted understanding tactical situation but possessed no clear intelligence, no visual reference, no basis for decisions. Commander ordered Illumination, requesting artillery support. Response came negative. Artillery allocated elsewhere. Company possessed approximately 40 handheld parachute flares, but these provided limited illumination and created targeting opportunity. Commander ordered flares fired despite risk. Russian soldiers fired handheld parachute flares attempting to illuminate battlefield. Flares launched from trenches ascending to 100 meters before igniting and drifting on small parachutes. White-hot magnesium burned at 3,000 degrees, creating 500,000 candle power. First flare illuminated sector showing nothing. Ukrainian forces remained concealed, but flare itself created enormous thermal signature, appearing in Ukrainian sights as blinding white heat source. Ukrainian BMP gunner observed flare launch and immediately identified firing position. Flare trajectory traced back to source revealing Russian position. Gunner engaged with autocannon. Private Alexei Petrov, who fired flare, was killed instantly by 30mm, round 2 seconds after ignition. His attempt to gain vision revealed his position, creating fatal opportunity. Additional flares were fired from multiple positions, creating sporadic illumination. Each revealed little of Ukrainian positions, but each launch revealed Russian position. BMP gunners systematically engaged flare launch positions. 7 Russian soldiers were killed firing flares, attempts to gain vision becoming suicide missions. During brief flare illumination, some Russian soldiers with adequate positions attempted engaging Ukrainian forces. Sergeant Ivan Karpov, positioned with good fields of fire and 1 PN58 monocular, observed Ukrainian infantry during flare light. Through monocular, he saw grainy image of soldiers moving in formation 200 meters distant. Karpov fired controlled pairs, 2 rounds per target. 3 Ukrainian soldiers were hit, 1 killed by headshot, 2 wounded requiring evacuation. Karpov's position was immediately identified by muzzle flash and engaged by 2 Ukrainian squads. He survived only by displacing to alternate position before fire impacted original location. But Karpov represented exceptional case. Most Russian soldiers could not see targets clearly. Private Vladimir Orlov, without night vision, fired blindly at sounds. He expended full 30-round magazine, achieving 0 hits while revealing his position. Ukrainian fire swept his position, bullets cracking overhead, centimeters from his head. Ukrainian infantry assault began after BMP suppression. 3 squads advanced in coordinated movement across 300 meters. Movement was deliberate, 50 meters every 5 minutes. Each squad member wore thermal monocular headset, providing hands-free night vision. Soldiers could see terrain clearly, observe teammates, identify obstacles. First squad leader observed Russian positions clearly through headset. Heat signatures of 16 defenders in 150 meters of trench. He could count defenders, identify occupied positions, observe behavior, some alert, others sheltering. Some apparently wounded based on lack of movement. Lance Corporal Andrei Kovalenko, designated marksman with thermal scope, systematically engaged Russian soldiers from 200 meters. Through scope, he observed individuals clearly. Heat signatures, weapons, alert status. He selected targets methodically, engaging soldiers with night vision devices first, then others. Kovalenko fired 12 rounds, killing 8 Russian soldiers and wounding 3. His targets never saw him. Russian defenders attempted resistance, but efforts were ineffective. Most could only fire randomly. Senior Lieutenant Anatoly Volkov attempted organizing coordinated defense. Through his monocular, he intermittently observed Ukrainian advance. He directed concentrated fire, creating brief suppressive effect. But Volkov's radio commands revealed his position to Ukrainian electronic warfare team. R-330ZH Zhitel system identified transmission source and designated coordinates. Within 90 seconds, mortar fire impacted his position. He survived but sustained concussion and lost communication equipment. Ukrainian assault reached Russian trench at 23:17 hours, 34 minutes after commencement. Close quarters combat ensued with extreme violence. Ukrainian soldiers employed grenades extensively, fragmentation grenades thrown into trenches before assaulting positions. RGD-5 grenades detonated in confined spaces, creating devastating effects. Private Yuri Fedorov heard Ukrainian soldiers approaching, heard grenades landing. 2 seconds to react, diving deeper and covering head. Grenades detonated, destroying his hearing, filling air with fragments. Fedorov survived, but sustained severe fragmentation wounds, was rendered unconscious, later found wounded by Ukrainian soldiers. Hand-to-hand combat occurred in several sections. Sergeant Mikhail Sorokin engaged Ukrainian soldiers at point-blank range. He fired entire magazine at first soldier entering trench, hitting multiple times and killing attacker. Second Ukrainian immediately followed, throwing grenade that detonated near Sorokin. He sustained wounds but engaged with sidearm. Ukrainian soldier shot him 3 times, 2 chest, 1 abdomen, mortally wounding him. Sorokin died 5 minutes later from massive bleeding. Russian command dugout became assault focus at 23:38. Ukrainian 2nd Squad identified dugout through thermal signatures. Squad leader called for surrender. No response came. 2 Ukrainian soldiers threw grenades through entrance. Grenades detonated inside with catastrophic results. 3 Russian soldiers killed instantly, including communications operator. Company commander survived but sustained severe wounds and blast lung injury. He attempted surrendering but could not speak, lungs too damaged. He died during evacuation 20 minutes later from respiratory failure. Loss of company commander created command vacuum. Platoon leaders attempted continuing resistance but lacked coordination. 3rd platoon leader, Junior Lieutenant Pavel Volkov, recognized impossible situation. His platoon sustained casualties, possessed inadequate night vision, faced enemy with complete thermal advantage, was isolated from command. Volkov decided to withdraw rather than continue hopeless defense. He issued withdrawal order to rally 0.1 kilometer behind defensive line. Russian soldiers attempted withdrawing through darkness without adequate navigation. Rally point required crossing open terrain, challenging with night vision, nearly impossible without. Many became disoriented, lost contact with teammates. Ukrainian thermal sights observed withdrawal clearly. Russian soldiers appearing as bright signatures moving across dark terrain. Ukrainian forces engaged with rifle and machine gun fire, inflicting casualties. 17 Russian soldiers were killed during withdrawal. Some successfully reached rally point through skill and fortune. Others became lost, wandering alone. 11 soldiers were never accounted for. By 01:30 hours, 6 hours after assault commencement, Ukrainian forces controlled former Russian position. Remaining Russians had withdrawn, surrendered, or been killed. Post-battle analysis identified multiple failures beyond equipment deficiency. Defensive positions not properly prepared for night defense. Obstacles inadequate in quantity and placement. Wire obstacles were insufficient, easily bypassed. Minefield coverage minimal. Illumination munitions insufficient and poorly coordinated. Withdrawal planning did not account for navigation difficulty. No marked routes for moving in darkness. Training deficiencies were identified. Russian infantry received minimal night combat training. Most exercises conducted in daylight. Soldiers had little experience in complete darkness. Units with limited night vision did not train adequately in equipment employment. Combined arms coordination inadequate at night. These gaps meant soldiers entered combat unprepared. Ukrainian training emphasis on night operations was critical best practice. Ukrainian forces routinely conducted night exercises, familiarizing soldiers with thermal equipment, practicing night tactics, conducting live fire in darkness. This created competence and confidence. Ukrainian soldiers were comfortable operating at night, knowing equipment provided advantage. Economic analysis showed thermal sights represented cost-effective force multiplier. Modern thermal sight costs approximately $4,000. Equipping 97 soldier company required approximately 120 units. Total $480,000. This enabled destroying Russian company worth approximately $2 million while suffering minimal casualties. Return on investment approximately 4-to-1 economically, 10-to-1 including all factors. Russian attempts to acquire thermal equipment faced multiple obstacles. Western sanctions prevented purchase from international suppliers. Domestic production capacity severely limited, insufficient for military-wide distribution. Available sites allocated to priority units, leaving regular infantry inadequate. Expanding production required massive investment and multi-year timeline. Alternative approaches were explored with limited success. Some units experimented with passive infrared sensors, detecting thermal signatures without providing visual image. Results were marginally useful. Sensors detected approaching soldiers but provided no targeting information. Other units tried deploying limited sights on static positions, conserving equipment but reducing flexibility. The engagement became case study in how technological gaps create tactical disadvantages that superior tactics cannot overcome. Russian forces could employ better tactics, improved positions, better withdrawal planning, enhanced obstacles. But fundamental inability to see enemy meant any night engagement would favor Ukrainian forces. Only solution was acquiring equivalent technology. Tactics could not compensate for technology gap this substantial. International military analysts concluded night vision represented critical capability for modern ground combat. Forces expecting night operations required thermal sights at squad level as basic equipment. Not specialized gear, but standard equipment. Cost was substantial, but alternative was accepting operational constraints or excessive casualties. Many military forces reviewed night vision inventories following engagement lessons. Several nations accelerated thermal sight acquisition, increased funding, expanded procurement. Engagement influenced international procurement decisions worth tens of billions aggregate. Tactical evolution accelerated after engagement. Ukrainian forces expanded night attack doctrine, recognizing thermal advantage created decisive edge. Planning prioritized night timing whenever feasible. training emphasized night operations. Success bred preference for darkness. Commanders actively sought night engagements, knowing technological superiority multiplied effectiveness. Russian defensive adaptations attempted mitigating night vulnerability, but solutions proved incomplete. Some units deployed infrared illuminators, projecting invisible infrared light detectable by image intensification, but invisible to thermal. Practice proved limited. Illuminators had short range, required precise aiming, were detectable, creating targeting opportunity. Obstacle employment increased, attempting to channel attacks into prepared kill zones. Defensive positions included prepared illumination, stockpiles of flares positioned for rapid employment. These measures reduced but didn't eliminate Ukrainian advantage. Morale impact extended beyond combat effectiveness. Russian soldiers recognized they fought with inferior equipment against better-equipped enemy. This degraded confidence. Soldiers questioned why they were sent without adequate tools. Political pressure mounted as families demanded answers, but systemic issues couldn't be rapidly resolved. The engagement's lessons resonated internationally. Military forces worldwide reviewed capabilities, comparing equipment to Ukrainian and Russian forces. Many increased procurement, recognizing equipment gaps created serious vulnerabilities. The engagement became case study, taught in military schools, examining intersection of technology and tactics in modern warfare.